to follow through to get their team to that next stage. As we are onto the bans here, Nocturne noticeably going to remain almost permabanned for LNG, as IG are the first ones to pick up. And no Vi has been banned, so I feel like in true just global fashion, this is a character that will be considered by both teams with it left open.
We have to keep in mind this is a 0-6 roster in terms of games through the season. What is WeiWei doing in scrims that is making everybody ban?
I know. Is he like dropping 20 bombs every game?
It must be insane. On the other hand, Rise getting locked in pretty early for IG. Maybe not insane, but is a noticeable pass-up of the VOD you mentioned.
It is. So Rise obviously going to give you some of that dueling power, some of that lockdown as well to really pair up with other junglers. I think it opens way to a lot of possibilities, as jungle wasn't, besides that Nocturne, super focused down in the initial ban phase here, Dia. LNG, though, going to opt for a Nefiri right out of the gate. Orianna was banned away by LNG, and that is kind of the big pairing with this character. So I don't think they'll pick mid immediately. They could pivot to bot lane to just try and give something over to 1xN so that he feels comfortable, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Corki locked in, and I wonder if IG are going to maybe try and steal away something like the Melio, steal away something like the Nami, which are two of his better pairings in the current meta.
I love this point in the season because we also get to look back on what has already happened between these two teams. As of right now, Nefiri is the only champion that was played at all the last time these two teams faced off, and credit to him, it was in the hands of WeiWei as well. Also worth noting that despite the fact that that series went 0-2 against LNG, they did almost win game. They got very close to winning game 1. Maybe
they did.
Maybe, although I don't think that WeiWei was the largest part of that. I think 1xN arguably larger, but maybe they felt like the Nefiri was it.
And Dia, I have awful news for you. TheShy so far has played a unique character in every single one of the games he has had over the course of split number 3. That record has officially broken. He has now played 2 games of Olaf. There's not another unique champion. Well, this is not a unique champion to him. So, sad days here for the TheShy variety fans, as that will be locked in for him. And against a pretty short-ranged comp as well, which I think Olaf tends to thrive in. So, good setup for him to be the main focal point of this game. We do also see the Jarvan lockdown. So, again, just playing into the fact that this pairs super well with the Rise and gives you a lot of that necessary lockdown against some of these LNG carries who are all just being piled on top of one another. We've got Akali, Corki, and Nefiri. So LNG's damage, Dia, is really high so far in the first 3 picks, but I think right now they lack a stable piece. So I'm looking at top lane to try and bring something along those lines to try and maybe give them a consistent setup, because so far you're pretty low on the CC, and I think that if you can't get lockdown on some of these other champions, it's going to be difficult for you to fully get effectiveness and dish out that damage.
I mean, I do really like, despite its lack of stability, I think the Akali pickup feels really good into IG's composition, that it does really not have a bunch of AoE to lay on top of you. I know that Jarvan can get fancy with it, but in large part, IG's composition is going to have a really difficult time hitting Nia, and if they're even thinking about hitting Nia, LNG have plenty of other damage to throw at them. I think that in theory, this works very well. Just picking Akali for the Shroud here should be great, but as you say, LNG needs something to tie this together. I am also, as a side note, desperately praying for a Meiko Olaf, just so that TheShy can pick
that would be
a
metal,
unique
honestly.
champion.
There are a bunch of good, decent supports up, though. I mean, Camille, notably, one of those has been super high in the priority list, but as a caveat, Camille's counters, the Shen and the Leona, the 2 most popular against her, are also open and available, so I feel like it's kind of a bait here, as IG are actually going to take away the Shen, so maybe they're considering giving Meiko something along the lines of a Camille that would give you more necessary lockdown. And frankly, Hextech Ultimatum is actually really good against some of these more mobile carries on the side of LNG. You mentioned the mobility of the Akali and the Shroud being really effective. If she steps out of the Shroud for even a second, boom, Hextech Ultimatum reveals her, and then you can just dump all of the crowd control you have built in from this top side to take her down, as IG, considering going for something like the Kaisa, which I wouldn't hate. This feels like a pretty engage heavy composition, but you're also playing it into a lot of short range and a lot of damage, like we said. So very high risk, high reward play style coming out here from Awesome in game 1.
I mean, knowing who I'm talking to, knowing that I'm talking to a gentleman who knows ball, I'm going to respectfully take the opposite side of this. Kaisa, to me, feels like throwing. I want to see what IG do with it, and their composition as a whole does look pretty good. But Kaisa, to me, feels like a lot of risk because, as you highlighted, her short range into this composition gives you a lot of room to mess up, where the rest of IG's composition doesn't really have that opportunity. However, we are down to the last pick for LNG, given that they went with the safe matchup in the top lane. The Cassante supports the last role to be locked in, and a Nautilus into Poppy is going to be just fine. I don't expect the bot lane to be too explosive.
I don't. I think for LNG, this is a game where you really have to look at the new players. We haven't really highlighted them over the course of this pre-show, Dia, and in this draft, but Nya and WeiWei are the additions to LNG, the two guys that have been brought on to try and fix this team, to try and get them to that next level, and to try and really elevate LNG to that next step here in the LPL. And I think this is a composition where Akali and Nefiri are looked at as those carries, as those volatile members against an IG that is pretty difficult to punish early. I think there's a lot of mobility on a lot of these carries, and even after the early phases, a lot of them will be building health. They'll have enough peel to get away from you. And so it just kind of feels like a difficult game here for LNG overall, trying to get these more volatile matchups ahead in the early game, because if you can't do that, I think the 5v5 team fighting for IG going into this game is quite solid, and something LNG will definitely struggle to take down if they don't have those accelerated members.
It's interesting to see Nia returning to the Akali as well, given that he played this in the last series that these two teams matched up, but in the game where they did worse. This should be a pick that, especially against IG, comes with a lot of nerves for It's like we never left. I will say that I have yet to actually see the game, but from what I'm hearing, we haven't got first blood yet.
Honestly, it's fun to try and narrate League with just the sounds. I remember during COVID times in Worlds, I believe it was Worlds 2020, the game crashed during the match, but they could still hear it. So the casters tried to tell you what was happening with just the sound for a good 20 seconds. That's a W caster moment right there. I feel like we could probably do the same thing. These guys have these champs have pretty recognizable sounds, right?
Yeah. And I mean, as we were talking about before the show, I spent a lot of time in bot lane. You know, we can figure out what's going on. Once we get an enemy has been slain, that's where I think we might be a little bit in trouble. As it is, doesn't seem like LNG are too much. Bot side going to be cleared out pretty quickly for WeiWei, and for the most part, this early game, not really where either of us were expecting to see action.
No, but I think, frankly, it's where we need to see action in the case of WeiWei and Nya, like we said, on the Nefiri and the Akali, two very volatile champions, because I think if you don't get them ahead early, you run the risk of being outscaled, being out-team fought, and that is something that I think LNG have really struggled with over the course of not just the split this year. When 5v5s come to the game, I feel like LNG, just something in the air makes it more difficult for them than it needs to be. WeiWei going for that 3-camp reset. He is almost done with his top side, and if he can try to look for something top lane. TheShy actually has not dropped a ward yet, but Sheer is looking to fight.
I mean, TheShy is literally a breath away from death. He steps
Oh!
1 foot out of line, and Sheer shuts him down. WeiWei didn't even have to visit.
Mid, Rookie.
It's one of those play-by-play moments where I just sort of clasp my hands together in prayer. I go, Rookie, you have Flash, you have Ghost. There's no way you die. Surely, just let us breathe.
Well, luckily he doesn't have to use either of them, but still good there. Good roam there from Missing to chunk out Rookie just a little bit. Replay of the top lane fight. I'm interested to see how TheShy actually went down here, because the Cassante is a counter pick and can sometimes be difficult in this matchup for Olaf pre-6, but I feel like dying here is just not something that you see every day. Yeah, Flash Empowered Auto gets the job done. Or Q Flash Empowered Auto gets the job done, I should say. And back to live here, we saw, I believe, Wei actually steal away WeiWei's tier 2 chickens. So setting the Fury behind just a little bit to equalize the advantage that seems to be brewing in top for Sheer.
In case any of you are watching this on a second monitor, we are going to try and, you know, do our best to emphasize them differently, but think about it critically. Engage your brain for just a second. As TheShy, I would ask him to do the same, and he does. Neurons activated. TheShy walks away.
Manages to hold on to that Flash too, but certainly not a great way to start out the game if you're Olaf trying to have just a stable laning phase overall, frankly. As he's actually not even going to be able to take the reset. He has Wei in the area, but Sheer is very, very tanky, and I think TheShy would struggle to get involved even if it was 2v1, so they're not going to go for it. Instead, Wei is going to take his first reset of the game at almost 5 minutes, so there's a lot of gold for the Jarvan to spend. And yeah, just really interested in how Wei, or TheShy rather, is going to get back into this game, as Missing is back mid lane.
Ooh. A little bit of a generous hook there. That's all good. It happens to all of us. Rookie should still be able to get out of this, although having to expend both summoners is exactly what Missing was hoping for. No kill doesn't matter nearly as much here as the amount of ability to impact his own lane that Rookie just lost. I wasn't even sure he was going to be able to get this CS.
Meiko being found here trying to save his mid laner, but Missing just patrolling, making sure that he can't do that. I like that Rookie was staying really far back behind his tier 1 turret, just saying, all right, I know Nia has Flash, I know he has the second charge of his ult, I can die if I'm too disrespectful, so he makes the safe call, backs away, and will end up getting the reset because now Meiko is able to hold the wave for him for a time being. As Wei is in deep within enemy territory. I don't know if they win this. Meiko is half HP, but Awesome is here to make it a 2v3.
A nice smite from Wei, and ult online for the Jarvan as well. It's going to spell first blood going to IG. In sharp contrast to the solo lanes being in their advantage, IG are the ones that strike first and now move to the dragon.
Really good sequence there from Wei. He actually steals away the big chicken, dings level 6, and gets the extra lockdown onto Missing with the Cataclysm. So kill going over to Awesome, probably ideally where you want the gold, just because we've highlighted how volatile the Kai'Sa is in a game like this where everyone is so short range and where you're going to have to get in their face. If you're ahead, that just increases your chances of survival later. Dragon going to be secured because of that pick onto the Nautilus. And really the only thing that Wei gets taken away from him at the end of the day is the red buff. So a small price to pay, I would say, for the Jarvan, especially after you've already dinged level 6.
One of the really nice advantages that go to IG because of this as well is that they don't have to worry about Dragon and Grubs being up at the same time. Grubs are about to spawn in about a minute. If they'd like, they can contest for both neutral objectives. Although, as we said, their solo lanes are at a disadvantage. Both of them.
They are. Rookie has a very minute gold lead here, but for the most part, I would agree with you that Akali is the stronger champion early on in terms of being able to actually fight around some of these neutral objectives in the river. Both teams, though, moving their supports up toward the mid lane. This indicates to me, Dia, that they do want to try and fight for these grubs. I think one thing to really note is there isn't someone on IG that's great at being able to take down Sheer. This is going to be a very tough and tanky Cassante at this point in the game. You don't have a lot of magic damage, and he's building all armor. So if he gets into that team fight, if he's able to actually impact the map there, could be a dangerous game you're playing. And so IG are actually going to ensure that nobody is trying to contest them. They will send everybody toward this top side to give themselves a numbers advantage. In response, though, 1xN is going to get some plates. So that kill that Awesome got essentially erased from the gold lead and putting some stock in this Corki to have influence on the game.
I don't know if they had to do that strictly. IG, I think it's a good thought, and getting all the Void Grubs I can absolutely get behind. Because we have full vision of the map, I do wonder whether it is, yes, something absolutely necessary for them to have pulled everyone up for that. Because as you say, it does let LNG equalize a little bit of this advantage, and LNG have already been doing quite well in the early game. Although I will say, Rookie and TheShy splashes are back up, so maybe some of that's going away as well.
I do agree with you a little bit that IG, the importance of the grubs can be disputed a little bit. You don't have a ton of side lane pressure outside of the Rise with that Realm Warp. If they can make use of that, I think the grubs are worth it. But now WeiWei maybe caught out here, has to flash.
Still going to get away from this. IG, despite popping the Ghost, aren't going to be able to get that catch. In fact, we might be able to turn this around. Missing lands the initial hook. And although Nya gets locked up, LNG are looking for a follow-up engage, of which they have none. No ult on Missing, and is still waiting for his hook cooldown. IG do get the advantage in being able to back away into the river, whose vision they control.
LNG are probably just scared to take that fight. WeiWei had to use his ultimate. Nya had to use his Shroud really early as well. So your big disengage out buttons as Hang On Awesome is taking the fight to 1xN. No one going to go down, but both 80 carries taken to about half HP. Missing, though, you can tell, is maybe fishing for a dredge line.
I mean, he's been landing all of these, but this time lands it onto Meiko, which gives Awesome the chance to deal some damage back with Wei here as well. It is 3v3. A minute left on Drake, where we could easily see fights like this be breaking out again. But first, a couple of resets are going to come in for the LNG roster.
And I think in the next minute or so, it's imperative that both Meiko and Missing try to ding level 6. When you're on red side, you have a lot of easier access to the bot side river, just being able to get onto the open side of the Dragon Pit. So I think that really increases the value of Poppy being able to eject you, because you have to go over so many walls and much more terrain in order to re-involve yourself in the fight off of that. So that is something IG should really try to get if they want to avoid any unnecessary 50-50s or fights where the numbers are even, because still, Nya is in a good spot, and 1xN is around even with Awesome. So I think you probably want to be landing those ultimates and really holding on to that Poppy ultimate, particularly as he does ding on to level 6.
Exhaust going to be down, heal going to be down for Meiko and Awesome. And I believe that it's WeiWei who has no flash for the moment, unlikely to get it back up for the Dragon. If they're able to control mid lane, maybe that solves a couple of problems, though. Right now, the Rise's wave push has been a little bit much, and Scuttlecrab secured by Wei is going to give them permanent vision. If they find 1xN here, it could be big, but Wei, with the trigger discipline, is going to hold off on jump scaring the Corki.
I don't know if IG can realistically enter here. They do have Meiko with his ultimate, but Missing has also dinged level 6, so that guaranteed lockdown is there on top of that. So I think that is enough to scare them. They're going to give up this Dragon, and it'll be one apiece. Yeah, LNG just controlling the river better, getting Prio in mid, and IG not willing to risk a fight at this moment in the game, because like we said, Dia, they are better in the late game. Once they can group up as a 5-stack, I think they're heavily favored in that regard. So the less action they give LNG, the less opportunities they give them to snowball this Akali and this Nefiri, the better.
As it is, Nya, I keep alternating between them, is going to be doing pretty well in this early game. sitting with a small, and I mean small, XP and gold lead over Rookie. Maybe there's an opportunity for that to really explode in the side lane when we get there. As it is, Nia's been basically sitting mid lane this entire time. It's gotten a little bit of support from Missing, but hasn't been rotated out into the side lane like Rookie has during the last couple of minutes. IG have been much more flexible with their map assignments so far, with where people are going, whereas LNG a little bit more inflexible, I think, hoping to get as much gold into this Akali as possible and have her pop off on, say, some short-range AD carry during the next team fight.
Something like that. Even if they can just burn Awesome's exhaust, I would say Nia's influence over the team fight and getting onto that backline just skyrockets because it's so difficult to peel him off, especially if you can get your other threats in a similar position. Sheer, obviously, the big breadwinner of LNG right now with a 500-ish gold lead over TheShy. And this Olaf hasn't been able to really surmount that since he got first blooded earlier. So Sheer getting that gold lead, holding on to it still. And we're just dancing around the river. Missing, gonna go wide with the dredge line for what feels like the first time this game.
Meiko's fancy feat will finally be put to an end with the passive flash over the wall to try and get away from Nia, and he will do so. Wei and Rookie now left alone in a 2v3, but Wei seems comfortable with that, recommitting onto WeiWei. Rookie gets involved in the fight, but LNG and IG don't lose anyone in this fight over...
Nothing.
Over what?
Just over pride, okay? Over ego to say, hey, I killed you. Nobody goes down there. IG, I think, expertly peel off LNG. Meiko with the flash over the blue buff and then immediately charging his ultimate, so anyone who tries to follow him is just going to get ejected out of the fight, sent a million miles away, and then LNG not quick enough on the trigger to switch targets. Everyone from Invictus Gaming manages to escape with their life, but still, LNG, the ones looking for plays, the ones looking for these picks, trying to accelerate the game pace, but not being able to do so. IG are holding on despite LNG being the aggressors.
I'm really excited to see the next time these teams face off in 5v5, 3v3, doesn't matter. As long as
Herald
Meiko's
is up.
there. That guy was dodging skill shots like nobody's business. And like you say, we've got the opportunity for another dance-off.
We do, and Meiko charging into the river. This is just the classic IG play. They move as one, Dia. Everybody pivoting up toward this topside river. You can see that Sheer is in the bot lane. He does have the upgraded teleport, so this is going to be one tanky Cassante.
TheShy waiting on the flank as well.
No.
Next then gonna have to be careful here. Smite's gonna go down. Wei secures that, but does not actually grab the eye. So IG still want to win the fight after this. They got the objective, but are they going to let it all go? Simply not wanting to take a fight with LNG could be the call, but TheShy says absolutely not, boys. We are fighting this. Goes in for the eye, decides that he's taking it. Meiko plays frontline for the rest of the team, while Nya is a distraction. TheShy is 1v4ing on the top side and picks up the first kill onto WeiWei. Sheer going over the wall, brings Wei with him, and Wei's happy to be there, going for the flag and drag, forcing flash out of 1xn and barrier at the same time. TheShy maybe finally going to be shut down. He's 1 HP, but LNG don't have the range, don't have the damage to do it, and it'll be just the one kill onto WeiWei and the Rift Herald that IG walk away with.
I don't know if they're going to give up. Herald is going to be popped. They want an entrance into this dragon to maybe look for more kills, but LNG will be able to exfiltrate with blinking health bars. Still, though, Invictus Gaming walking away at the victors. They get a kill, and they secure the Herald. They're going to get themselves a top tier 1 on top of that. And the cherry on top here, Dia, is that once we go back to live, they'll be set up off the redeploy to fight for this dragon, as we do get a replay here. And this is just a banger TheShy moment. Everyone's dancing around. He says, nope, I see Missing, full HP, I'm popping ultimate. Even takes a little bit of a detour from hitting everybody to pick up the eye like a true Giga Chad. And gets the kill onto WeiWei. Nya completely separated as well. And like you said, this Olaf champion, 1v3, 1v4, despite being first blooded, this champion's not okay. I'm just going to go out and say it.
How does he walk away from that? Hook gonna go wide on Meiko once again. Michael Jackson of the Rift today. But WeiWei Doesn't have to hit a skill shot, just has to press R on him. Meiko pops the heal to get over to the mid lane, where his AD carry was theoretically in trouble. We wondered who would take down Sheer. It turns out that 4 people together can finally do it, but they trade Meiko's life to make it happen. Teleport behind the rest of LNG, brings TheShy right back into the fight, tanks 2 tower shots, but gets away, as does Nia.
Deathfire Touch, not going to be enough. Nia will live, but 2 members of LNG will die. And Dia, it's starting to fall apart. It was a solid early game. It was a calculated early game. But LNG, off of 1 lost fight, not even a terribly lost fight at the Rift Herald, the plans are starting to fall apart and IG are rallying.
The way that they've been playing has looked really good, and also in a way really funny. I think it's very infrequently, especially because I don't speak Chinese, that you can hear the comms through the gameplay. But the way that TheShy has played in these last 2 team fights, you can hear not just the "come on, we win this," but also the sigh of like, "Oh my god, I can't, like, can we just do, you know, do I have to be the one to do this every time?" That comes off of that gameplay. That, like, TheShy is playing with incredible confidence. He knows what fights IG are winning and not, and he's made it happen both times consecutively. The rest of IG, I think, getting a little bit more confidence, as Meiko's demonstrating now with 1xN being exploded in this mid lane. And IG
Flash wall slam. Meiko securing the kill, and teleport coming through here from LNG by Sheer. Maybe trying to look for something back, but they've got no damage. They've got not enough members, and IG are just going to walk away here. Meanwhile, TheShy is pushing a top lane wave, so LNG, on top of not being able to respond with a fight of their own, with a pick of their own, feel like they're starting to be pulled apart. IG are playing really nicely on these side lane waves, even after TheShy goes for a reset. You can see Rookie is on the bot side. He's going to claim the tier 1 over there as well. They're just being drip-fed gold, and the scaling is really going to start to come online. Rookie is very close, about 3 minutes away, a little bit less than being able to try to complete his Roa. So we'll get 10 stacks of that pretty soon. And TheShy just dinged 2 items. So these top-side members of IG, these scaling components of their comp, are really going to be hitting critical mass very, very soon. And I think LNG are starting to run out of gas. Dia, the snowballing of the Akali and the Nefiri just wasn't enough over the last 20 minutes, I think, for them to now have relevancy going forward.
It's not very often that we see something like this happen, but TheShy being taken down once this game is going to make it a second time. This time, LNG do have to pull 2 members up to make it happen. It's well worth it for them. 20 minutes into the game, they control top side River, and I say that as a sort of temporary status, as Missing at least is going to get shoved out of the red side jungle that belongs to IG. You mentioned the Roa, and I was having a bit of not awe and not exactly laughter, just, well, that's cool. It's going to be stacked up exactly as dragon spawns, like within 5 seconds of dragon spawning at the very least.
It'll be pretty soon.
It's on. Look, it's perfect. 59 seconds left.
Yeah.
No, it's, oh my god, bro. Like, do you think he did? Do you think
you know, honestly, I feel like if you asked Rookie, he would probably say, "Well, of course, obviously."
Yeah.
But we know the truth.
Yeah.
We know the truth. He did not predict that. But it would be cool if he did. Anyway,
it would be cool.
IG now grouping up yet again as a confluence in the mid lane. Mid tier 1, very, very low for the side of LNG. So you can see Sheer and Missing just trying to defend it with their life means that they're not going to have access to the spot side river. And look at Wei in the wings waiting to try and engage, but LNG are going to do it first.
Expending an ultimate, but not actually getting anything off of it. It'll be a trade of depth charge for Keeper's Verdict, and while Missing goes for another hook, there's not really a whole lot of great ways left for LNG to engage. You can say that on the other side. IG are missing some of their key disengage, but Meiko plays frontline for the team once again, stalling the hook, going back in to try and stun WeiWei against the wall. But IG have traded 1-for-1 support for support in this early stage of the fight. 22 minutes into the game, Dragon is up, and IG still feeling like they have the better end of this compositionally and numerically are going to start up the Dragon.
They absolutely do. That's their primary lockdown and their engage. How are they going to get into this fight here?
Oh,
we got
with
it!
steal!
Okay, Rookie's isolated.
1 for 1 again. Awesome free firing while TheShy tanks up a lot of time, a lot of space, flashes away just in time, and Awesome is going to dive in to secure the kill. Now left alone with Cheer, TheShy comes back to play hero for his AD carry, securing a double kill for Awesome, and his way in the front lines alone wraps up the fight. IG walk away dragonless, but with a team fight win.
And they're going to be able to claim mid-turret as well, with many LNG members having fallen. So they'll at least get some objective on the map for the loss of the Dragon. Good steal there from WeiWei. That would have been soul point for IG. So at the very least, WeiWei will buy them some time to try and find a solution to this ever-evolving, ever-scaling Invictus Gaming comp. Going into the replay here, it's a massive cataclysm there from Wei. But I think the big turning moment here for IG is in the re-engage that they find off of now starting the Dragon. We said they don't really have someone who can start the play. Those dredge lines have been the primary way that they have gotten a majority of their picks, but then Nia goes in, flash ult, isolates Rookie, and it opens the floodgates for the rest of LNG to get here. They dump all of their damage onto TheShy, but the Olaf living, they have no cooldowns to actually deal with the Jarvan or Awesome, so they just wreak absolute havoc on the remaining LNG members. Just a good in and out sequence from Invictus Gaming, but LNG still not super disappointed with the end result of that play, as like we said, they did deny the soul point.
Big switch for the next fight. We saw how Rookie isolated, was still able to take down 1xN, but paid his life for it. This time he's got Seeker's arm guard for the next fight, and we see something like this break out again. There's a very good chance that Rise gets away with murder in the most literal sense that you can, you know, gets away with murder in League of Legends.
In-game. You always got to add the in-game there. So otherwise, Drew 11 is going to be on you. IG basically baiting LNG to match them in the 5v5, and so what will result is TheShy actually having a really good position to have threat on the top side. And you can see they're using that priority in bot side for TheShy, and they're using that priority to just get a red buff to get some space bot out here around this part of the map where the dragons are spawning, and that really is the primary objective from here on out. Is the next team to get it will grant themselves soul point and a win condition that really will play into who wins this game. And I think for LNG, they are praying that it is them, because right now, as we've talked about, I think the gas that Nia and WeiWei were given early on in this match, Dia, has kind of run on empty. And so it has to be through the team fighting, it has to be through other means, it has to be through the soul, I think is the most apparent win condition that comes to mind. So any kind of setup they can get around that part of the map will be well warranted. But my biggest concern is that they don't have any turrets. They have no way to extend that vision line, so I think it really hampers Missing's ability to look for picks.
I've seen this interaction before. Meiko tanking every hook for the team, and always with the steadfast presence as well to deny LNG an actual entry into the fight. I've been a big fan of Meiko's popping during the course of this game. He's played the front line exceptionally, and now maybe that results in them having enough control of this river to start and perhaps even finish the Baron. Teleport in to try and deny this. Will IG turn? Will IG run?
LNG are going to try and fight. They've got the big shield.
Sheer does jump in right on top of Awesome, who immediately burns Seeker's arm guard, but still all in. Will catch him with Akali and Cassante on top of you. What are you going to do? Nothing.
Oh,
with
my
Olaf
lord!
On top of you. What can you ever hope to achieve? TheShy is running through the team, and while WeiWei will swap in and secure yet another kill for IG, a Realm Warp to bring everyone back over, throws Wei into the pit, and Missing to the Wolves, as IG will walk away with yet another kill. That is 4 for them around the Baron. IG win the fight convincingly, but chaotically.
WeiWei with the bit of an alley-oop there to be the only LNG member to escape the clutches of IG. And the damage from Rookie in this fight. Look at how much the Spell Flux impacts this play. It's not just one member being constantly hit. It's multiple members being chiseled down gradually as the fight goes on. And one little bit of damage from TheShy and Wei is all it takes to knock down a majority of these LNG members. So much damage coming out from the Rise, and good team fight there from IG. It was initially looking like LNG would be able to win the fight. That extra shielding from the Cassante was really helping them in their initial engage, but it's the Rookie Rise damage that ends up getting them through that. Third Dragon over to IG, and they are the ones with Soul Point D. The door seems to be closing for LNG if they cannot get a miracle play in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, especially the sole point that we just sort of cut back to casually is, as you had illustrated not 2 minutes ago, one of the biggest win conditions that either of these teams can hope for. IG are going to look for their secondary one once again, the Baron, forcing yet another teleport out of LNG. That is both teleports expended in these short minutes that we have had IG try for the Baron. Rookie maybe going to try for WeiWei right now as...
Oh, they found him!
The wall. Meiko does find the knock into the wall. And that turns the rest of LNG into a team that must simply run, and that they cannot do. Another kill going to be facilitated by TheShy, and with a nice Realm Warp, even Sheer will die. However, with your Jarvan dead, do you start up the Baron? Looks like the answer is yes. Awesome in his whatever trillion kills, 9 kills, says yes.
Yeah, gets a triple kill. I'm not going to say the obvious, which is that that's awesome as Rookie is getting aggressed onto.
Going golden for a moment. LNG should be down a mid laner. Awesome's going to be chasing this down, and extra bit of movement from the heal. 1xN here with an exhaust onto him. LNG could lose a lot more than just their mid laner. Awesome picking up a double, putting himself at 11 kills this game. Kaisa is a god or goddess in this particular round, and with 30 minutes on the board, Baron down, Soul Point already secured for IG, and a Dragon up in 3 minutes. You could see the writing on the wall.
I was a little bit disappointed that Awesome doesn't have a score line of 11-11, so I could say the cringy make a wish joke. But going into this replay here, WeiWei just on the wrong side of the tracks, gets caught out with really no possible answer for the rest of his team. I mean, Sheer is here to get a pickback onto Wei in the 1v1 that eventually turns into a 1v3 where he ends up going down. But now we pan back to live, Dia. It's a 9,000 gold lead for Invictus Gaming. Baron is still going to be active for them for 2 minutes. It feels so difficult to imagine a world where LNG can get their first win of the game from this one, as IG are just barreling down multiple lanes and pressuring them, slowly tightening their grip around their windpipe.
And the one issue that I had with this composition has been solved in multiple ways. I was worried about Awesome's survivability.
Goodbye, Missing.
It's been solved in the sense that he has now 12 kills, thank you, Missing, but also Azanya's on top of it. There's not a way that you kill Awesome, because he's either going to kill you first or he's going to go invulnerable. And that solves a lot of issues for IG. It causes them for LNG, who have no way to deal with a 12-kill Kaisa and an Olaf with an axe that just won't quit.
Sheer.
Looking for now. IG still wanting to apply as much pressure as possible to this mid lane tower, especially since they already got bot lane inhib. There are really only 2 lanes left to pressure, and they got folks in both of them. LNG do hope for an overextension of some kind. Maybe they found it with a hook onto Wei. They could kill the jungler. Wei's being eaten alive by the dogs. Awesome gonna go golden, but he looks dead. Finally gonna be taken down by WeiWei, but again, you've got the Olaf in your back line. TheShy and the axe that just won't quit is gonna pick up a triple kill. 32 minutes into this one, he's looking for a bit more. Sheer will shut that down. Meiko runs away, and Wei, no choice but to flag and drag himself over the wall. LNG leave with a base in shambles, a team fight won, but I can't say how much hope left.
TheShy saving the play there. Awesome with a pretty egregious misposition. Does get taken down, but the Olaf 1v3. And you're saying the axe that won't quit, Dia, but my man has got 2 axes. It's the axes, plural, that won't quit, and a player that has been known for his perseverance, just decimating LNG's backline in a 1 versus 3 situation. Gets the triple kill. And once we go back to live, I would imagine dragons having spawned, IG members coming back to life. This soul should be all but theirs as the base, even with IG members not pressuring it with a Baron buff or their bodies just in the area, it's double inhib, and they have got to be clearing out those waves. They cannot afford to be contesting this.
Well, with Awesome on it, Dragon melts, and everybody has the minimap. We didn't see anyone from LNG walking up. Preferable to fight into soul than into a lack of vision, it seems, for LNG, as neither of those seem particularly good. And LNG likely to be on the losing end of this game. Miracles do happen, I believe. 11-11, make a wish, but maybe not this game. Sheer going to be sitting in the front line for now, but Wei finds access to Missing, who has to expend the depth charge to keep himself alive. Even that, a temporary status as IG, minions and all, are shepherding LNG into the smaller and smaller portion of Summoner's Rift they can call theirs. One last Nexus Tower standing. TheShy taking a 1v1 with the support while Sheer gets exploded in the front line. The towers aren't even the focus. IG are looking for player kills over anything. Hook gonna go wide for Missing. Awesome. Positioning with his full face in view of the enemy. Finally has Nya flash on top of him to try and finish this off, but it is not going to work. Awesome dashes into the front lines, goes golden. Nya picks up a kill to answer it back, but it is all in vain as ultimately IG walk away with game 1 under their belts.
Little bit of a disappointing game there for LNG, and certainly not the first from them that we have seen over the course of split number 3. Dia, the control that they showed and exemplified in the early stages of this game, I felt like gave me a little bit of promise and maybe a glimmer of hope for them to be able to try and find their first game win of the 3rd split here in 2026. But unfortunately, one little pick from TheShy, one eye pickup, putting the I in IG, and the game just falls apart from there on out.
Yeah, I'd like to say things started off looking really good. LNG, we hammered this a lot, or at least I tried to bring it up as much as possible. Leads in both solo lanes. That seemed like the winning formula. When you have a lead against TheShy, when you have a lead against Rookie, I mean, you should be able to turn this into something a little bit more substantial. And granted, LNG did not just roll over this entire game. They did pick up 2 dragons, one off of a smite steal, and ultimately looked all right for the first part of the game. It was the second half where IG, as you had mentioned, got to play off of their bigger strength, the team fights, and TheShy's picking of them in the early game that ultimately led to a big lead for IG in the end.
And part of the reason why we threw up that graphic early in the pre-show talking about LNG's really short average game time is because more often than not, in the games we've seen of them in split number 3, they haven't been able to get to team fights. They haven't been able to get to those fair 5v5. So I guess if you want some progression, you want some positive development for LNG, we saw some even footing team fights around the mid-game, Dia. So at least LNG were able to get that. They didn't win many of them, but they still were able to get to that point. And I think the lack of actually having those 5v5s over the course of split 3 really did show. It kind of felt like every time a play or an engage was being brought on by Missing, or even Nia, who I think did some fancy engages with like a flash ult there to start up an exchange as the Akali. It just fell apart. The target selection didn't feel like it was on the same page. They weren't able to execute the proper members. A lot of the team fights just felt like they were reminiscent of a team that really isn't used to team fighting. And I feel like it showed here in game number 1. So at the very least, they got some practice under their belt and might be able to take that into game number 2 to try and bounce back in this series.
I mean, you brought up a good point about Missing earlier. Missing's hooks were actually good. I liked the way that Missing was playing. It hurt LNG that they really didn't have any other way of engaging outside of, like you talked about, these weird, if somewhat effective, ways of Nia getting in your face. Like, the composition, just by the way that Meiko was playing on Poppy, really couldn't do a lot but walk at you after a hook didn't end up working as it did here, because of the steadfast presence. The rest of the team having to walk through that with their dashes and all is a bit of a problem.
And another issue that they ran into is even when the hook landed, I think that Meiko did such a good job this game at positioning himself to always be the guy tanking that hook. He would throw up the steadfast presence, and even when it landed onto him, because he has that ability, the follow-up engage from LNG is really, it's difficult to capitalize off of, because all of your follow-up engage is just going to get stopped from that spell. So really want to compliment Meiko on his positioning over the course of these team fights to make it super difficult for the rest of LNG to even have a chance of getting into the backline. And even when they did have some of those opportunities, like, hey, we've got our CC on certain members, we can look for a pick. You use all your crowd control to engage, you've got nothing to disengage with. TheShy is going to throw his Q, he's going to throw his 2 axes that won't quit, and he is going to click that ult button so hard on your backline that you're going to have no choice but to basically run away. It really did kind of feel like, at a certain point, a lose-lose situation for LNG going into these 5v5. So, can partially blame the draft. I think that the Poppy really was an X-factor counter to a lot of what this LNG composition wanted to do in trying to get fights started, as we have illustrated. But also, it just felt like IG were too mobile, almost, right? Even if you get that CC, Awesome's got a way to get out of the fight as this Kai'Sa. WeiWei's got a way to get out of this fight as the Jarvan. And you really didn't have any answers to that. So I think going into game number 2, just more consistency and more stability for some of these lanes is what we need to be seeing. Because I felt like a concern of lack of lockdown for some of these volatile champions like the Naafiri and the Akali was a point of concern going into the game, and is something that really bit them in the end.
Yeah, it was tough to watch, especially at the end, the way that LNG just ran out of options, and a lot of that came down to your player of the game. Awesome. Taking away those options, as we mentioned, not just with the incredible gold lead that he was able to accrue, but the fact that he ended up picking up a Zhonya's as well, made this the guy you had to deal with. And in trying to deal with Awesome, LNG lost the game.
I feel like if I was Awesome, as soon as I buy that Zhonya's, the only 2 words that are going through my mind are good and luck, because there was no possible way he was dying at that point. Awesome with a really pop-off performance, and we talked about him a little bit in the draft, Dia, in the sense that this is a guy who has been, because of just the names on his team, I think underrated in terms of who he actually is. When you have a team of 3 world champions, usually those guys are going to be a point of discussion, a point of hype around your team. But I don't think that's let Awesome discourage him at all from having a lot of performances like this, getting MVP in game number 1 and having a lot of pop-offs over the course of split number 3. So it's always really cool to see the more maybe underrated player of the squad get his flowers and get a game for himself where he can really show his stuff, as he has been doing all year. I think that Awesome was the centerpiece of that NIP squad in splits 1 and 2, and it's cool that he is continuing to show it up on IG here in split 3.
And there were a lot of nominations. I mean, we all They came up at the bottom, but TheShy got a nomination, Meiko got a nomination, WeiWei got a nomination. I mean, there are a lot of really good news stories that you can point to here. I think that for this IG roster and for this game, we were spoiled for choice. There was a lot that went really right, and there are a lot of ways that we could go on and talk about who should be the MVP if we weren't to choose Awesome. But I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, so let us know who you thought was the MVP of this game, because I'm curious myself. I'm going to be talking about it with Quax during the break, and we will see you guys in a few minutes.